Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Hayaan Africa. My name is Awasar. I'm Assistant Director for Academic Affairs at the African Studies Center at Michigan State University, and Hayaan Africa is our weekly seminary series. As you may know, we did not have an Hayaan Africa lecture last week due to the violence that happened at our campus on February 13th. We continue to grieve the loss of our students and pray for those who remain hospitalized. We received a lot of calls, text messages from our Hayaan Africa community, and I want to thank everybody. We appreciate your support. We are coming together as a community at MSU and working to move forward. So today I'm very grateful to have with us Dr. Abdiqani Farah, who's going to talk about his topic is the relationship between different measures of school performance and student achievement in Somalia with a focus on Puntland. Before I pass it over, a brief introduction. Dr. Abdiqani Ahmed Farah received his PhD in Biochemistry and Master of Science in Applied Entomology from the University of Glasgow. He also did a Master in Science in Computer Information Systems at the University of Greenwich and a graduate certificate in Tertiary Education at the University of Melbourne. His main research interests span the field of primary through higher education management and quality assurance, curriculum development, public health and epidemiology, vector control and parasitic diseases, biochemistry, as well as agricultural and environmental sciences. He is currently the Secretary General of Commission for Higher Education of Puntland, the Director of Somali Institute for Health Research, and he is also a research fellow at the Hayaan Institute for Research and Policy Studies and Hayat Medical University. Thank you very much, Dr. Farah, for being here. I pass it now on to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Awasa. I'm really thrilled to for you to give me an opportunity to present my work on the education sector of Somalia, particularly Puntland state, as Somalia is fledgling into a federal state, and Puntland is the oldest and the largest when it comes to size. And I really thank you and everybody in African Studies Center by giving me an opportunity to present my work in here. And this is not the first time I'm presenting my work through the Hayaan Africa program in the Michigan State University African Studies Center. Thank you very much. So I'll begin without further ado. My work is based on two work I've done on. One is the primary education, which is about the various indicators of school quality and educational outcomes in Somalia, with a special reference to Puntland, and the other one was the secondary school. Both of them have used the same methodology in doing my research and my other colleagues. So I'll start without further ado. The main aim of the intent of my work to examine the primary and the secondary education, particularly in Puntland. So specifically, I was looking at what are the parameters? What are the parameters? If you want to look at the quality of education, there are some basic parameters you have to look at it, such as does the student has got an access in enrollment in a school? Is the authority able to keep the student in the class, or the retention and the transition from primary to secondary to tertiary education, or maybe into the world of work? That could be attributed to the elements such as the funding, teacher preparations, student-to-teacher ratio, classroom-teacher ratio, primary education facilities that are available in that particular area, whether it's a town or in the hinterland. as Somalis. The Somalis are I can say 60% of the Somalis are nomads. So is the, you know, those students, those kids who are in the nomadic lives, do they have an access to education is another point. Okay. Among the United Nations Millennium Development Goals was the completion of the universal primary education by 2015. Is that happening in Somalia is the question. As mass education and supply of educated labor force, socioeconomic growth, and the reduction of general disparity, and that intertwines. The goal of the work given in here is to promote informed discussion among the educators, policymakers, and other interested in educational reforms in Somalia in general, and Puntland state in particular regarding the land. What I'm trying to say in here is in public, 7% of the public delivery services are footed by the international communities and 30% by the governmental authorities, whether it is the federal member states or the federal government, rather the central government or federal government, whatever they call it. Okay, in this way, and agreed upon immediate long-term needs, model assists policymakers and educators by identifying the connection between the education reform and underlying socio-economic and political issues. What I'm trying to deliver in here is, if the people get educated, they will have a better life in the future. If the person is educated, they will be able to look for a job and maybe get a job, or better, that leads to a better living conditions. Okay, so there are two types of primary education. I have to insist in here the primary education. So I did some work in secondary education, but primary education itself, it's a 8 years program, 4 years, which is the elementary, and 4 years in the intermediate. But the primary school education in Puntland, there are two types of primary education offered in here. In the age bracket of 6 to 14 years old kids. Okay. I have to insist in here. I've been all over the world, but if the boy or girl are in 6 years or 7 years or 8 years, usually they don't start from the scratch, from the first class of the primary education. They will join their age groups. In Somalia, it doesn't exist. So there are two types of primary education. One is the fast-tracked alternative basic education, and that was supposed to cater for the nomadic kids. And the other one is the primary and integrated Quranic school, which is the normal 8 years conventional primary education. Yeah, I'll go through it quickly. Okay, methodology I use it is very common in here. I've used it as retrospective data sourced from the previous 6 school years, as well as raw data on the direct and indirect cost of the primary education and their impact upon the parents' affordability to send their children to school in the first place, which were collected from 27 primary and secondary schools using a cross-sectional approach. We approach it when it comes to the cost of education. We don't, the government or federal member state of Puntland didn't have any data on regarding the cost of the education for a child. So we have to approach the schools and got a sample of cross-sectional data. To study the data we have collected, we use the descriptive as well as the inferential statistics. Okay, here we have the data we collected from the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Planning of Puntland State. And you can see that in each considered scholastic year, we have considered about 6 school years. 6 school years from 2015 to 2016 up to the 2019 and to 20. And We have done a little bit of, there is no census that has been ever done in Somalia, but there is a population estimation usually did by United Nations organizations that are operating in here. So the first column is the school years, the second column is the population estimation, and then we have to put into consideration the population growth rate. And then out of that, we extrapolated the total population per year as far as Puntland is concerned. Out of that, how much have reached school age from 6 to 14 years old, particularly from 6 years old. That's where the students join the schools and they recruit in the schools. And so only 30%, as you can see, only 30%, only 30, I'm talking about in here, 130,394, only 140,000, only 30% of that attended school region, and only 12% enrolled. Out of 140,000, only 167,000 enrolled out of 1,400,000. And that I'm just reading the average in here, combining together, and only 12% enrolled in every statistical year. Only 12%, and that is a very dire situation. And the other thing we have to consider is what is the dropout? Did they finish? If the child enrolls at the age of 6 throughout the 8 years of the primary education, did they finish and succeed to go into the final examination of a year 8, I mean? Out of that 167,000, only 9,000 reached the final final examination for the intermediate schools. Okay, in here, I further extrapolated it and check if what is the rate, what is the ratio of the male and female in here, boys and girls. And we can see that those reached in the final examination, those who enrolled, 55% were girls. I can see that there's not a big gap between the boys and girls in here when it comes to enrollment. Okay. I've just put this bit of information to bring your attention that 65% of the Puntland population or Somali population are nomads. So one expects majority of the students who are joining the school from the age of 6 has to be from the nomadic side. But the question is accessibility. Do the nomadic children has got an access to education in the first place in the villages? Okay, here we have. A little bit ago I alluded that there is 2 types of primary education in here. Which one was the integrated Quranic school, and the other one was the ABA. So what I'm trying to show you in here is only 4%, because alternative basic education 1, which is only 5 years, not 8 years. You have to, if you attend ABA school, you are supposed to finish the school in 5 years, while the primary integrated Quranic school is the conventional 8 years one. And I just a moment ago, the previous slide, I've showed you that 65% of the population are nomads. And in here, if you look at it, only 7,000 attend in the schools for the nomadic people. and the majority of them they go into the conventional schools. So what I'm trying to bring your attention is there is some gap in here when it comes to those kids who are in the nomadic life. Okay, I've just summarized in here. What are the dropouts from year 1 to year 8? The dropout. What's the dropouts? So when it comes to boys and girls, maybe the primary, and only 5% is the dropout. Here we have, I don't know. Okay. Here we have, I'm just trying to put in major color the enrollment rate of the boys and girls at the primary schools, rigid children in the last 6 scholastic years. Out of the total number of registered in respective school years, 55% were male and 45% were female. And statistically, there is no significant difference between the boys and girls when it comes to the enrollment. Okay, whizzing off. Here we have the boys and girls, and after they finish, if they are in the integrated Quranic schools or the alternative basic education, male and female who reached to year 5 or year 8 and attended the final examination, final centralized examination, the number is 57% and 43% when it comes to boys and girls. Still, there is no distinction between the boys and girls, but the dropout is very huge, really. The dropout is very huge. Only 140,000 students reach the school year every year in Puntland for those 6 years we consider, and only 9,000 out of 140,000 reached the final examination, final centralized examination. And those who reached in the final centralized examination, 57% were boys and 43% were girls. Okay, here we have sorry. As far as the secondary school is concerned, I didn't show here the recruitment and the retention and the dropout is, I've just considered in here who reached the final examination, So we can see that the Form 4 final examination candidates and promoted students, Form 4 final examinations were tested and against the enrolled for secondary school, and only 15% went through the 4 stages of the secondary school with a significance of that. Only 15% out of those, we have in here 27,636. Only 4,000 reached the final examination. Okay. Only 4,000 reached that final examination. And those who have been promoted and unpromoted in here, through to tertiary education here, where we have in here 2,763, only 4,000 reached, which is 15%. That is to say, 85% left school before they finish the final the final year or Form 4, before they reach the 4th year. In one way or another, they drop it out along the way, which is really a dire situation. Okay, here we have, I broke down into the grades of the kids in here. How much was how many students have reached get a grade A, and how much get a grade B or grade C? So you can see that majority of students who passed the Form 4 final examination got either B or C, and 105 failed. What is the dropout rate? The dropout rate is very small. Only 61 students failed to appear in the tertiary education. Okay, here what I did was just to make a sense on the slide I showed you earlier. for those students who entered the Form 4 final examination, 16% get A, 26% get B, 5%, or you can say that 2% never showed up in the final examination. Okay, moving on. Here I have another aspect of the parameters that we are looking at the primary and the secondary education performance. As far as the primary school teacher trend are concerned, here I'm looking at the teachers. And specifically, I am looking at the ratio of the male to female. As you can see in here, only 14%, as we have in here 4,420 teachers in Puntland. And out of that, only 609 are female, which is a 14%. And that is statistically highly significant. Okay. I put in a graph as far as the teacher supply is concerned, and the supply of teachers in 9 regions. Puntland has got 9 regions. Prior to the Civil War, it was about 5 regions. There are extra 4 regions in here. And you can see that we have Ain, Ambari, and Gardafoui, Highland, Karkar, Mudug, Nugal, Sanag, and Sol. And the supply of teachers in the 9 regions in terms of school years was examined in here. And you can see that some of the regions, they lie along the tarmac. Some of the regions, they lie in the hinterland. So the proportionality of teachers are higher in Bari, Karkar, Mudug, and Nugal. And those 4 regions, they lie along the tarmac. And that could be there is the number of schools there are higher than those who are off the tarmac or any other factors. Just so you get a sense of perspective on what I'm talking about the tarmac, is the red line that goes through from Galkayo to Bosaso. Moving on, there are 2 types of teachers in Puntland. One is the qualified and the other one is the certified teachers. A qualified teacher has completed the necessary degree, at least 2 years of teacher training and essential practicals on field experience in the current educational authorities acceptable standard. Then there's a GTEC college that has got the authority to either make the teacher qualified or certified. And the certified one teachers has gone 1 step further by submitting the appropriate documentation to certify for such as the teacher college and has been issued professional teaching certificates. That's the distinction between the certified and the qualified. Okay, here I have the proportionality of the certified and qualified teachers. You can see that 77% of the teachers that are available in Puntland or that are teaching in Puntland are certified, and only 22%, 23%, I mean, are qualified teachers. Okay. Just like the primary education, majority of the teachers are male in here. And the situation is really dire when it comes to male and female proportionality in the teaching profession. Okay. 95% of the secondary school teachers are male and 5% are only female. Only 5% are female. Okay. Moving on, as far as the number of schools per region is concerned, Bari and Karkar and Mudug and Nugal has got when it comes to proportionality of schools, highest school number in here. And one can only say that the influence of additional factors that they are on the tarmac, maybe the salary variation of the teachers and the number of students is per school, per region. Okay. Another factor, anyone who is trying to gauge on the educational quality in a country has to look at the student-teacher ratio in primary education and secondary education as well. So if you can see that when it comes to the school, when it comes to the teacher-student ratio, every teacher, maybe every class, every teacher, every teacher has to attend 33 students, or maybe 35 students in some regions, 33 students. The minimum number is the 33 and the maximum number is the 38 per teacher. After a calculation so when I calculated the available data, the number is slightly different, which is 37 and 37, 32. On average, you can see that every 30 students will have one teacher. One teacher. As far as the school distribution is concerned, of the regions with a reference to 7 school years is 32. Bari region has got the highest number of teachers in here, which is about 128. And if you look at in years, if you look at in years, 2014-15, there was the average number of schools per region was 32, and the second year was 128, something like that, okay? The schools, in Puntland, there are 2 types of schools, public and private schools. And if you look at the figure I presented in here, but the blue color is the public schools and the red color is the private schools. As you can see that there is a huge disparity between the public and private schools. I have to mention in here, there is no distinction between the public and private schools when it comes to the cost of education. All of them, they behave as if they are in private schools and they charge student fees and some other fees for students and their parents. Finally, we've looked at the affordability and the cost per child. And regarding the school fees, the cost of the transport, fee for midterm and the final examination, the cost of text and exercise books per item per student in each month, all in US dollars, as it is hitherto the sole tender note for transaction in Puntland. Due to the civil war, Somalia they haven't got a tender note, local tender note, but so everybody used to say United States US dollar. So, and out of that, when we analyze it, the cost of students per school, per region, on average, every child has to pay 29 plus or minus $7 every month to go to school. Consequently, the overall cost per child per one school year becomes $234 per year. So indicating that I didn't get really. I tried my best to get family income. The only thing we get access out of the documents available in Puntland is the family expenditure, which is 234 per month, indicating that amount of the available average household expenditure per year, which is 3,461, 289 per month goes to the school fees of one child. That comes to a considerable sway of the family expenditure per month. It's 12% of the family expenditure per month. As I mentioned earlier, we didn't get the family income per month. It's quite difficult to get. For Somalia, the government as well as the private institution, they don't collect those data. Here we have a school fees per student in each month, per region in here, The region is, when it comes to the school expenditure, the region is vary from one to another. But overall, whether they are in Ain or Karkar or Highland, on average, every child has to spend almost $30 to go to school, which is really difficult for the families. And I think that's one of those factors that causes the huge dropouts along the way. Okay. Therefore, again, the background of the average number of child in a household in Puntland, okay, and according to the demographic information and household characteristic of Somali Health and Demographic Survey by Puntland Statistics Department, Puntland State, to nuclear family adherents, 32% household have foster or orphaned children. That makes it difficult to send all children to school. On average, United Nations are claiming on average, every household there is 6 children. On average, cost of fee per month, midterm and final examination, the cost of textbooks and exercise books was $22, $8.4, $0.5, $5 respectively. If you look at the figure, you can see that which comes out when averaging 36 per child per month. Consequently, the overall cost per child per one school year in 9 months. This is the data of the secondary school. And the data I showed you earlier was the primary education. So there is a disparity between the secondary school and primary education. Primary education was $29 per month per child. In secondary school, it's almost $37 per child per month. Summing up, access to basic education continues to be a matter of serious concern in Somalia in general and in Puntland in particular. The attainment of the drive on accessibility, enrollment, and retention. I lumped up in here accessibility, enrollment, and retention because the accessibility comes first. If the child, particularly those kids who are in the nomadic life, the biggest I say that impediment is the accessibility of the schools in the village. More often than not, the villages they don't have schools, so the child in the first place they will never get an access to school. By the time they build a school, they have to enroll, and then they have to keep the students in there. As far as the financial constraint is concerned, affordability, I mean, for the parents to send their children to school based on the based on the 288.5 per month per family, and keeping in mind the family expenditure of a family $300 per month. So it is really difficult to keep the child in the school. First of all, to enroll the student in a school is a major leap for the parents to afford to send their children to school and then to keep the children in school financially. I mean. So the lofty dropout along the way from the enrollment to eligibility for the generalized primary education examination after 8 years in primary education could be described maybe due to poor education quality, students lose yearning to learn, exacerbated by not giving due attention by government and other stakeholders such as the international community. Also increased dropout elevates the number of street children and child labor and reduced girls' education. So what I'm trying to extrapolate in here is if the child didn't get an opportunity to go to school when they reach school age, these factors will seep in, such as the number of street boys go up, the child labor goes up, and the girls, particularly based on the culture of the people, will never have an opportunity to go to school. As a result, even among those enrolling in primary and secondary education after 8 or 12 years in education, only 5 and 15 become eligible for respective generalized examination, as I alluded earlier. That means 95 and 85 respectively of enrolled fall through along the way. This is really a big issue. As far as the huge dropout is concerned, the matter puts the association between social, political, economic, and dropout rates in major colors. I'll go through quickly. There have been a 5% lopsidedness towards boys in terms of enrollment. From the beginning of my presentation, I've mentioned that there is no significant difference between the enrollment when it comes to boys and girls. And the gender disparity among those who have finished the degree and are ready to sit for the final generalized examination is not significantly different. Okay, indicating that parents' bias towards boys is gradually being phased out, and parents' awareness in educating young women contributes to the girls' future quality. Okay. So when it comes to the enrollment of boys and girls, it seems there is no distinct significant difference between the boys and girls. It gives the impression that parents are aware in educating their girls. The preference of parents of boys over girls does not feature in here. But when it comes to the dropouts, the dropout is huge as far as the girls is concerned, and the boys also. In terms of gender disparity among teachers, moving on from the boys and girls, and as far as the student is concerned, here I'm concentrating on the gender disparity among the teachers. Only 13% of the primary school teachers are female on average. Comparatively, sub-Saharan Africa remains at just below 50%, while in EU member states, since 1991, out of 2 million teachers, women's representation has been 85%, at 85%. So you can see that we are not even nowhere near closer to the sub-Saharan Africa standard, as far as the Puntland is concerned and so on. The findings has two connotations in it. First, it proves that since independence, hardly little has changed in the existing gender imbalance and the deficiency of female teachers in teaching profession. Secondly, previous research has demonstrated that there is a substantial correlation between learning result and the degree of qualification possessed by the teaching force, which makes teachers a crucial link in the delivery of high quality education. Especially when it comes to the primary education, the overwhelming majority of teachers has to be female. Secondly, the culture of presenting girls to do household chores at their early age persisted and proved an obstacle for them to pursue teaching as a career. This goes against the predominant belief that female teachers are more nurturing than men, are ideal candidates to fill the role in primary education. In addition, the positive impact female teachers in primary education have on girls' scholastic performance. That's the two main factors to mention when it comes to primary education teachers. And I mean, I'm alluding here that the primary education universally, it's believed that girls are better in teaching the small kids. Female teachers, really. Okay, furthermore, their vital roles are mentors in delivering sound holistic education, such as for girls, social knowledge, can help them to integrate and become better members of their society, as well as play dynamic part in their families. That is another factor to be reckoned. Lastly, investment in schooling are critical individual comes societal poverty alleviation. If you educate, or maybe if you get educated yourself or educate your children, they have a better opportunity to get a better job and a better life, particularly for marginalized groups and women emancipation through the Millennium Development Goals. Based on the findings and other similar research, school fees could be potentially significant impediment and ought to be eliminated altogether or subsidized by meeting indirect costs such as expenses on textbooks, notebooks, tuition fees, other itineraries to school, school dress, examination fees. Okay, for a push to universal schooling. In conclusion, conceptual framework that identifies basic components articulated here, as far as Puntland is concerned, and I presume that the situation is the same. The other and detailed plan to improve the quality of primary education, to continue situation analysis and sector work on school excellency, and to monitor and evaluate educational reform is to be formulated periodically. To meet the future needs of education financing, international and regional organizations must first come up with a lasting strategies, at least to better regulate both public and private schools. Also, the government, I'm talking about in here, either federal member states, particularly Puntland, we have researched on, and the other parts of Somalia, the government could explore, whether it's the federal government or federal member states, the government could explore the public-private partnership in the direction of future education financing to enhance the number of qualified primary teachers needed for the child and youth to access quality education, and at the same time close the gap that exists in teacher-student ratio. Albeit, Sub-Saharan Africa is associated with the lowest ratio of female teachers in primary education, which is 50%, as I mentioned earlier, referenced in here, UNESCO data. The percentage of female teachers, which is 13% in here in Puntland, is extremely alarming and merits immediate attention, as female teachers have an affirmative impact on girls enrolling and subsequently enduring in schools. I've just alluded that factor. I'm just repeating here to emphasize it. Likewise, learning and teaching policies, curriculum, and learning assessment ought to be revisited in here to first identify the root cause of the high dropouts rate, and the secondly, remedy it. Because I've mentioned it here, and I've shown you in my data, I've collected from the Minister of Education as well as the planning, the recruitment of the kids is relatively better than the dropouts. And there are so many factors we have already mentioned, which is the school, the main culprit. The main culprit is the affordability of the school of education, or maybe the parents is to first in the first place send their kids to school. To formulate an adaptable calendar and timetable is arranged for a temporary learning space along the passage routes, transportable libraries, and supportive interactive audio tuition for the nomadic children. As I mentioned earlier, the nomadic children has got the problem of the nomadic people is two fronts. Number one is the accessibility of schools. Building schools in the hinterland, in the villages. Otherwise, the parents has to bring their kids into the towns, and they must have an extended family there who will be able to accept the child for the child to go to school. In addition, delivering a specific curriculum for basic education in a fast-tracked arrangement through an adaptable timetable is important also. Okay, finally, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and disruption of the educational stage, the Minister of Education and its international partners, mainly here, Save the Children, UNICEF, and EU. These are the three main international organizations that are involved in education in Puntland, maybe in another parts of Somalia. In addition to digital video lesson education and its mobile phone application, ought to come up with a learning platform for children, particularly those in nomadic setting and financially unable to access the digital technology platform, to be able to access lessons in line with the official curriculum and not become victim of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farah, for an eye-opening presentation. We have questions and comments in the Q&A section. You can also raise your hand and be allowed to ask your question directly. So we have Dikaita from Mali, who thank you and also send thoughts to us. And we have a question from Asanda Benya. Hi, Asanda, it's nice to see you. So the question is, I was wondering if the speaker can elaborate on what sociocultural factors have contributed to the very low number of female teachers.
That's a very good question. I've just mentioned some of them, but usually, even though since the independence we have come of age, but still it's a big and huge problem when it comes to employability of a female girls or women in the society in general in Somalia. Usually there is a mellowing culture that really atavistically puts the girls behind the boys right from the get-going. If the parents has got a boy or girl, usually they send the girl to the house chores and the boy to the school. It says that, why are you going to school? You are not a boy. But we've come of age of that. Usually, as far as my experience is concerned, but there are a cultural as well as the twisted religious matters that puts the girls behind the boys. And some of them cannot be explained in words, but practically people are doing it. So for instance, if in the Western world or something like that, where I spend the best part of my life, usually everybody does the dishwashers. But when it comes to the Somali setting, yeah, the boys and the parents are expecting the girl to attend the dishwashing, to attend the washing of the clothes, to attending the house chores. And also, Somalis are predominantly Muslim people, yeah. I can say that 100% that they are Muslim. And there has been a little bit of touch of twisted religion, yeah, that lopsidedly, you know, unfavors the girl than the boys. Is that okay?
Okay, and she has a follow-up question, which is, are there professions in Somalia that have majority women? If not in teaching, are there in other domains where you have a majority of women practicing?
There is a Somalia has been in a very internal time civil war for the best part of 32 years, and out of that, since the demise of the central government, it without any arrangement, yeah, the woman has all of a sudden become the breadwinners, and they become traders. So they have to go out and buy something and sell again. They have to sit in the streets. Gradually, they gain a little bit of profit, and then they set up shops. And if you go through the towns of Puntland and other parts of Somalia, majority of the shopkeepers are women. And that has something that has happened in a way that has not been arranged, part by the time and elements, by the civil war. So the overwhelming majority of the traders and business people in Somalia are women. So they all of a sudden they become a breadwinners. So luckily, when it comes to the family sustainability, I can say 70% of the family support comes from the women. Part that is a big part. After they set up a federal government in here, so about 12 years ago, all of a sudden the old tradition is seeping in. And if you go to the offices and the ministries and other governmental institutions, the overwhelming public servants are men. So that is something gradually happening. But another thing I have to mention in here is, even though the girls or the women are I can say 60% comfortable. 60% of the girls are who are in the trading business, yeah, who are the breadwinners, but still they don't get the recognition of it.
Thank you very much. Roland Thomas, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, I haven't really got a question. I just came in, I was listening, but I haven't really got a question.
Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Maybe you did it another one.
Oh, probably when I was there trying to look at.
Okay, no problem at all. So let's allow Isaac Oni to ask their question.
Okay.
Isaac.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm joining you from Maryland, USA. I came from Nigeria originally, and I got a link to a friend of mine who was a professor in Pretoria, South Africa. And so I listened to your contribution this afternoon over here, I want to know if you have mentioned the factor of early marriage of girls as was one of the factors that can be reason for the low turnout, has been practiced in northern part of Nigeria that are predominantly nomadics and Muslims. They have the similar problem that you earlier mentioned in your speech. I can see that have early marriage practice in that kind of region. Does that applicable in your place, and how do you correct that? Thank you, sir.
That's a good question, really. And it's one of those factors, really, I have to admit. It's one of those early, it's not early marriage. So I can distinguish the Somali people when it comes to early marriage. As I've mentioned it in my presentation, 65% of the Somali people are nomadic. So you can expect the majority of the girls are in the nomadic side. And in the nomadic setting, that is where the early marriage is very rife. It's very rampant, really. But when they move, usually people are moving to towns nowadays in an unexpected rate due to the environmental factors, because they are not pastoralists. So because of the environmental factor, drought and that stuff, they move when they lose their camel and sheep and goat, they usually come into the towns. So when they come to the towns, they have to adopt the lives in towns. But the early marriage, whether it's in towns or in the nomadic side, it's a factor that has been there for such a long time. But I haven't really looked at as a factor in my research, but it is something ought to be looked at.
Thank you. Another question is, since costs seem to be the biggest impediment on education, are there any significant financial investments that the government is making? What percentage of the GDP goes towards primary school education? Of course, we know that putting money alone doesn't address these challenges, but I'm still interested in the GDP percentage for primary school.
That's good. I haven't mentioned it in here, but I put it in another work I've done on the technical and vocational education. But usually, I don't know the central government, the federal government of Somalia. But as far as Puntland is concerned, only 2% goes out of the GDP goes to education. But due to the civil war, it is the international organizations that bankroll the education. I can say that 98% of the educational cost is being paid by either CARE, or UNICEF, or other international organizations. So, but since the budget of Puntland is really a meager one by itself, only 2% goes to education, and I don't think it's Puntland, either Puntland state or any other state or the central government of Somalia at this state are able to 100% finance the education, or but so they look for, they usually ask for the international organizations and other countries such as United States of America and UK and European Union to face in here and do the job of financing of education.
That's all the questions we have so far. Any more comments or questions before we? Okay. I see. Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. I would like to know if there are plans to increase the number of women teachers, or if there is a cultural barrier to having. I think you answered that, but do you have any other comments to add to that? Say, I would like to know if there are plans to increase the number of women teachers, or if there is a cultural barrier to having female teachers.
There is a so-called Minister of Education in here. I passed all my findings to them, and I really put in major colors the disparity between when it comes to school as well as the teaching. And I don't think at this stage, due to the political turmoil that exists in Somalia, they get their heads around for the matter. But I based everything I find out in my research.
Another question is, can you comment on the level and potential role of free primary education and school feeding programs?
School feeding programs, can you say that again?
Can you comment on the level and potential role of free primary education and school feeding programs? Do they have feeding programs in Somalia?
They don't have that sort of program in Somalia. I don't know what the future holds for them, but it doesn't exist in Somalia.
Thank you very much. I think you answered all the questions. And if there are no more questions or comments, we'll stop there for today. And once again, Dr. Farah, thank you very much for coming and sharing your research with us. We very much appreciate it. We also thank the audience for coming and for asking questions. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much, Dr. Awa. Thank you very much.